In today's brand new Hill Climb Monsters episode in Project Cars 2, we're getting all fast and furious in the R34 Nissan Skyline. Let's do it! What's going on, guys? My name is Matilio and welcome back to Project Cars 2 and a brand new episode of Hill Climb Monsters. This week, as you can see, our car is the 1999 Nissan Skyline R34. And before we jump into the video proper, take a look at the car itself and some of the practice runs and then our best time run. I want to thank you guys for how well the first video did. I wasn't expecting it to do that well, but you guys seem to enjoy it and I enjoyed doing it, so I'm going to keep doing it. And also we've had a massive upturn in the last month in terms of, you know, the channel stats. So we've had nearly 32,000 views over the last 30 days and nearly 100 new subscribers, so thank you for that. It's absolutely awesome. We're heading in the right direction, so thank you so much for that. The other thing I want to address, and this is from last week, someone left a comment saying that politics and gaming doesn't mix. Now, if you didn't watch last week's episode, I did a track guide because we're on the Azure Coast track, and I've named a lot of the corners, and the slowest corner on the course I named Donald Trump Corner. Not because I'm a supporter of him, no. I named it because, like I said, it's the slowest corner on the course and he seems like one slow mofo. But I kind of get where the guy's coming from. Politics and gaming doesn't mix. So I asked him to leave give me a suggestion what he would call it. Didn't get back to me. So I'm going to open it up to you guys. If you have an idea about what to call this corner, then let me know in the comments down below. As you've seen, it is a slow first gear left-hander. It's got a bump on the apex and it's slightly uphill as well, so it is a bit of a tricky corner. That bump can really unsettle the car, especially the rear if it's a rear-wheel drive car, and can have you pointing towards a barrier if you're a little bit happy on the throttle. So yeah, let me know in the comments down below. But what we're going to do now is take a look at the car a little bit more closely. As I said, it's the 99 Nissan Skyline GT-R. Obviously very, very big on the modified car scene and also made famous through films like The Fast and the Furious. Paul Walker was a big fan of the Nissan Skyline. I think he had one or two of them in his personal collection before he sadly passed away. This is the SMSR model though, so has nearly 700 brake horsepower, top speed of nearly 205 miles an hour, and 0 to 60 in 4.09 seconds. It's got a 6-speed gearbox, all-wheel drive, and it's a straight 6 engine under there. It features ABS and traction control as well, and because I run authentic assists, or realistic assists, then I have both of these available to me. In terms of setting this car up, one of the things, even though I had 2 hours, just to recap the rules, I have 2 hours which is to play around with the car and get it set up, and then I'll go away and then I'll come back for another hour to do my time runs. But even within that 2 hours, I found this car really tough to get set up. The Audi was relatively simple from last week, but this one was a lot more difficult, mainly in terms of dialing out the understeer. Being all-wheel drive, it will always have a tendency to be a little bit understeery compared to, let's say, rear-wheel drive vehicles, but this one I found very difficult to dial out, and the understeer tends to also breed, in this car anyway, oversteer as well. So you'd be, say, through the longer corners, you'd be turning, it's starting to drift, you know, you're probably not gonna, you're gonna screw up the exit at the corner, so you turn a little bit more, the back end kicks out. So I found it very difficult to try and get this car dialed in where I'd want it. I got the back end settled, but the front end was another story altogether. I got it as close as I could, but it got to a point where any more tweaks trying to dial out that understeer would just unsettle everything else. So I decided to just say, you know, it's the lesser of two evils. I've decided to just deal with a bit of understeer rather than having very bad oversteer or worse. So yeah, a little bit difficult to get this car set up. I think someone with a better understanding of suspension geometry and how it all works, I've got no clue at all. I'm just a guy who just gets it to a point where I can drive it and then go and drive around the problems with the car. But someone with a better understanding can probably set up this car a lot better than me. Take a look at the practice runs though, and we started off, we did about I think it was 7 minutes and 50 seconds was our best run, but then it started to come down in almost increments of 4 seconds. And you can see here this is a 7:46, and the first and second sectors weren't too bad. It was the last sector where I was struggling, and as I said, it was coming down in increments of 4 seconds, but there were a few hairy moments even through the second sector. So looking at this clip here, this is coming down the Camel Straight. We come over the first bump and I brake a little bit too late for the second one. It pitches the nose forward, and as we come over that jump I end up endoing the car on its nose for about 50 yards and then spinning out. But yeah, each run I was getting better and better, and I was getting faster and faster, but I knew there was still more time to make, and this is definitely evident through here. So this is coming down Rocky Road, the final sector. As you can see, I'm clanging off the barriers left, right and centre. Didn't do too badly in the first 2 sectors, but you can see here I've damaged the car quite badly, so it is very, very difficult to drive. You can see back end's going again, but even with all that, I still go green through the final sector, so I knew there was still time to find, and I could still do a really good lap and take a lot of time off of this one. So what we're going to do now is we are going to take a look at that run, and we'll see if the Nissan Skyline GT-R R34 can beat the Audi V8 DTM from last week. So let's do it. So here we go then, guys. This was our final run. We had about 4 minutes on the clock before the timer was due to end on that hour we had to make our timed runs, and it came very, very close. Even on the run where I was clanging off the barriers through that final sector, it was only a second off the Audi, so the time is definitely there to be found. And through that final sector, more evident than the first 2, as we come through the centre S is down towards Cruise Liner corner, and we're going to get a little bit out of shape here. You can see the back end tries to get away with us, sorry, just about keep it out of the barrier and out of that trash can, but it ruins our run through trash can corner on the entry and the exit. So that's going to compromise us and cost us a little bit of time as we come down Python Run now. And like I said, as much setup work as I did, I still just couldn't get this exactly where I wanted it. As I said, I think it just needs someone who understands how to set up suspension better than I do, because that's probably a bit beyond my mental capacity, if I'm being totally honest, as we come through stickman squats. And again, this was a section where the car struggled a little bit, didn't really like the undulation, and you can see here it's very, very difficult to get the nose in. We were so far off the apex of the corner there, and that's probably again cost us some time. But again, it was just, I couldn't really find that first sector was a very, very tough one. And like I said, this breakdown, the happy highway, this little breather I'm going to get is very, very welcome. And again, this is where we find out if we've got the gearing right. And I think I've got it as close as I possibly could, because we're going to get all the way up to 171 miles an hour, the fastest time we've seen so far as we come through traffic cone corner. And this was a corner, again, a little bit tricky to get through there. Not as tricky as some other corners, but it's definitely a challenge, and it's very, very easy to get it wrong. As we come through sort of right-handed, again, we didn't cut the apexes, we didn't cut as close to those bollards and get the apex as I would have liked. But down through Stonewall corner, this is one where every run I was umming and ahhing, doing it a little bit differently. Sometimes I was coming down to third a bit early, sometimes I was trying to get through most of it in fourth. This time I decided to split the difference, because it's just one of those corners, and there are a number of corners like that throughout this course where you kind of left wondering, oh, well, it feels slow in third, but but it feels just too, it's too difficult in fourth, and so on. So it sits between the gears in this car, seemingly, as we come through this very deceptive left-hander down towards Cobra Pass. And again, you can just see massive wads of counter steer whenever I get on the power. A good majority of the oversteering moments definitely coming from the boost on the turbo, because this thing must have a whopping great big turbo. As I said, it's 700 brake horsepower. Nearest makes no difference as we come through the corner that you guys are going to get the opportunity to name, formerly Donald Trump corner, of course. But again, this thing so wild, and it was definitely through third gears. We come through Fortitude. Again, we couldn't take that flat. We could take that flat in the Audi, but this one, no chance. But as I was saying, it's definitely through second and third where we're getting our oversteering moments, but that turbo starts to kick off if we go into Silver Spoon Village. And again, didn't get the entry very good there. Sometimes I was doing the entire thing in fourth. We had to come down to third because the car was getting a little bit out of shape on us. That little jump there, little two-wheel action as we come out of the village onto Outrun. And again, another corner here, another couple of corners where I was over in iron, whether to do it in fourth or fifth. I went through it in fifth in that time, and it felt pretty good. You're going to thread the needle here down towards Fraggle Rock corner, and again, still not figured this one out. Still a little bit difficult to figure out. The corner looks a lot sharper than it actually is. You can probably carry a lot more speed through there than I have been taking. So again, another place where disappointingly there probably was time that I'd lost, and probably time that I could have gained even, as we come down towards the bridge corner now. And again, not the best I've taken. Again, you can do it in third gear, but I think maybe I let the car bog down a little bit, which may have compromised our exit a little bit as we come into this slightly uphill right-hander to the Monga McRae Hill Complex. And again, another very, very challenging section. But in all honesty, the first two sectors, they weren't the problem. I got those dialed in and figured out how I wanted to drive them. Pretty much driving them was another thing entirely. Figuring out how I wanted to drive them was fairly easy, but getting the job done was another, like I said, another task entirely. But it was the third sector where the problems were coming into play. But one of the things that this car definitely excels at is the braking. The brakes are absolutely amazing. As you would imagine, from a car with 700 brake horsepower, you need a pretty hefty braking system to marshal all that power, and this thing doesn't disappoint in that regard as we come down the Camel Straight. And like I said, we're going to brake a little bit earlier now, because you see how wrong it can go. If you brake a little bit too late, you can end up almost going end over end as we come through Mirage 1 and 2. A lot more civilized through these corners than I was in the Audi last week, but we make it through. But again, onto the pogo stick straight, and the first part of it very difficult just to keep the car pointing in the right direction. The exit at the second Mirage corner is not straight as we take these jumps, and again, a little bit of a moment, big cloud of tyre smoke, but relatively but like I said, it wasn't really that big a moment. It looked a lot worse than it was as we come down towards the end of Sector 2. And another thing I wanted to mention is I don't know whether there's been a change or an update since the last Hill Climb Monsters episode, but I could have sworn the end of Sector 2 was basically here, the entrance to this tunnel. But it's now a little bit further as we move on to the Ocean Highway. It's a little bit further down here past this right-left corner. Just here is the end of the sector, so I don't know if they've changed where the interval timing is and where Sector 2 is coming to an end, but that's just something I noticed as we were going through, because I could have sworn it was at the beginning of the tunnel. But again, another little chance to just take a little breather. And again, this car's a lot more difficult to drive than the Audi. The Audi is a lot more civilized. Considering it's a early 90s DTM car, you wouldn't think civilized and that would go in the same sentence, but this is definitely a hell of a lot more wild. And again, this corner here, this downhill left-hander, which hasn't got a name as of yet, but that was a difficult one that caught me out a couple of times, as did this one. Bit of a delayed apex, and as we move down towards Deception, again, I could have took this corner a lot quicker, I think, but I know how easy it is to get suckered into that one. It coaxes you to go a little bit faster, and then it'll bite you as we come down towards Sweeps. And again, while it doesn't look like I'm going quick, the secret with this set of corners here I've discovered is just getting the line right, because there's a lot of delayed apexes, a lot of late apexes like here. Maybe cut that in a little bit too early perhaps. Wanted to get the line to this one, which I get a bit wrong, and then we're a little bit out of shape as we get out of it, but we get through it unscathed just about. Maybe lost a little bit of time as we now come down towards Rocky Road, and this definitely was, without doubt, the toughest section on the course. This is where I had the most struggles with. Very, very easy just to carry a bit more speed through these corners, because it's a wide portion of the racetrack, and these corners, they are quite sharp. They don't look as sharp when you're driving it, but it's very, very easy just to push yourself into these barriers, as you've seen in one of our practice runs. But as we come down to the final corner, a little bit of a lock up there. Get the nose in. Not a great run through there, but we still just tippy-toeing, trying to get the power down as we come across the line. And it's going to be a 7 minute 32 seconds .632, so it's beaten the Audi by near as makes no difference 3 seconds. And we've got a new leader on the leaderboard, guys. The Nissan Skyline R34, Paul Walker's favourite car, is now the top of the leaderboard. And this actually caught me by surprise a little bit, because before that run that you saw, the practice run where I was clanging off the barriers through the end part of the final sector, I honestly didn't think this car had it in it. It just felt like it was a little bit too loose, and I couldn't get it dialed in how I wanted it during my 2 hours of setup time. But it's done it. It's done it by quite a margin, actually. Well, considering the lap is near enough, like I said, 7.5 minutes to get through it, 3 seconds doesn't seem that big of a margin when you think about it that way. But as you see, we're 13th on the leaderboard in the track day cars, and it's also nice to see that this thing's actually beaten some of the track day A cars. But I think with a better setup on this car, we could definitely do a better time. But I think it just takes someone a bit better at setting up a car than me to get that done, and I'm sure that time is going to be beaten. But there's the leaderboard. Nissan Skyline R34 sits top of the leaderboard, 3 seconds faster than the Audi from week 1. And yeah, like I said, it was an enjoyable car to drive, but I think, like I said, it just needs someone who understands how to set up suspension a little bit better than myself, and this thing could really properly turn a good time in. But that is the end of today's episode, guys, so thank you everybody so much for watching. If you did enjoy and you want to see more Hill Climb Monsters and Project Cars 2 content from myself, then make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. Also, like I said, remember, let me know in the comments what you want to call that corner. Do you have a name in mind? If you have, let me know in the comments, and also let me know if there's any cars in particular you would like to see take on our Azure Coast hill climb course. But again, guys, thank you so much for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Peace!